that is 2025.
Joe, I don't want to go deeper on the future plans for that big coalition, but I can tell you
You're
for
terming
sure.
it as big.
But of course, yes.
Than the broad-based government?
It will be bigger.
Wow.
Yeah, it will be bigger. If it will not be bigger, then nobody could be caring about mountain. Yes, because people could have given a mountain it's time to heal and give them peace. But you can imagine that Murima is peaceless to date. And you can ask yourself why. And the answer is one. Everybody wants to win it. And if possible, split it. Why? Because it's dominant. We only require a support from another community or two. And then you get the numbers you want. Remember, how did Uhuru manage his 2 terms? Uhuru managed his 2 terms without Laila, without Kalonzo, without Joho, without Oparanya, and he still made his 2 terms. That means what? Those numbers are, if they are in block, they only require few to fill. Remember in the last election, the result was 47% were managed from that mountain. And therefore, what was to tilt was just few from others. In this case, I would like to say, as much as the coalition is concerned, I am sure that the pact will be, as you have alluded, because there are all signs and indicators are that Kalonzo, Gachagua, Wamarwa, Tawe, and most likely the former interior PS from Kisii, it will be...
CS, that is Fred Matiang'i.
Of course. That is the most likely that it will be one team. And then I can tell you, it's a team that you cannot ignore.
So they can shake up President Ruto?
This I can tell you, yes. I can tell you, yes.
So
I can tell
George Natembeya,
I can tell you very, very clear.
Kalonzo Musyoka, Eugene Amalwa, and Fred Matiang'i.
Plus Tawe.
That is George Natembeya, the
Yes.
Trans Nzoia governor.
Yes. That team itself, if it's combined effort, don't ignore their strength.
But Rigathi Gachagua has been pitched. He cannot vie.
Don't worry. Gachagua can most likely not become a candidate, but a kingmaker.
Ndindi Nyoro as your option?
Nothing will stop him from becoming a kingmaker.
Ndindi Nyoro as your option?
Don't worry. But in fact, if Gachagwa's arithmetic is not in the mix, then don't count Ndindi Nyoro out of it. So
you're saying Ndindi Nyoro is now Gachagwa's ally?
No. At this point, let us not go that direction. But I'm telling you,
there's a looming purge. He's going to lose the budget chair position.
Joe, what I can tell and assure you, don't at any time count Marima having no candidate. That because Gachagua is impeached. If the impeachment is not going to be quashed, then Gachagua will become a kingmaker. And he will appoint somebody from Mountain to negotiate with the rest.
So Ndindi Nyoro hinted that he's going to make a big political statement. Is it joining Gachagua's camp officially? Because he did not support his impeachment, by the way, in what we call fence sitting. And that will now cause him and you to lose the positions of budget and the trade chair, respectively.
May I have been always telling you, my good friend, politics are politics. And as we are today, we are firmly in UDA. That's our party. But it has a limit of time. Because there is, after 3 years, one has to make choice because you have to listen from your people.
So for political survival in the mountain, will it be also bad timing to oust Ndindi Nyoro from his capacity or his position as the budget chair?
I don't think that actually there is any motive to go that direction. But in fact, after every 3 years, the parliamentary committees have their way of realignment. And if that's the case, then it does not be a package of few. It is the whole.
Honorable Gakuya, is the Ndindi Nyoro your hidden card? That you
Joe, I don't want me to go that direction. I don't want to go that direction.
Rachel, from the assessment that Gakuya is keen not to...
But in fact, I can tell you for sure, don't assume that there is no single moment that Mlima will be without a candidate, because Gashagua's maybe case is not clear.
So 2027, there will be a presidential candidate from the mountain.
Of course, that I can tell you for sure.
Rachel, from what Honorable Gakuya is not saying, let's not focus on what he's saying, on the Ndindi Nyoro factor in the politics of the mountain, Gachagua might not, be able to vie if his case is not successful. And it's said that maybe his candidate now in the he's going to be kingmaker. So Ndindi Nyoro possibly, who was at some point considered to be, the man who would have taken over Gachagua as the deputy president, but that went to Kindiki because Ndindi Nyoro was fence-sitting. Talk about the political coalition that is now said to be formed. Gakuya says it's big and it will shake Ruto's government.
First, let me say something that Mheshimiwa had said earlier, but I think it's really contested. We all know what happened in 2017 general election, because you can't say that if only the mountain gets one particular community, then they are home and dry, and he gave reference to 2017 election, which was contested. We know what happened, and eventually it gave birth to the handshake. So I don't think if that is a very good reference when you want to say that Central is a vote-rich county or region. Secondly, when it comes to Ndindi Nyoro, I started smiling because I saw a post by Honorable Babu, that
these are the leaders of the future.
Exactly, trying to push a narrative of a possible, the two contesting for presidential seat come 2027. So yes, the mountain may be having quite a number that they want to weigh and see who then can we push to lead us, because of course we all know that Rigiji is not able to contest any seat
at the moment.
At the moment, in fact, until maybe after 10 years or not, unless the court acquits him of the allegations, then maybe he stands a chance. So it's a wait and see for Ndindi Nyoro. But I think what we have seen, even in the past with Parliament, is that when you oppose the regime, then there's a way that they know how to whip you out of the positions that they've given you. It's not going to. And he knows that he will also fall a victim, and that is a given. He may not just want to outrightly say it, but we have seen that. We saw that even in Azimio team. We have seen that before, even when Wagashomba was the only person who was contesting the finance bill and how they spoke about it. So it's a wait and see, but I think they're limited, and I don't know how much Ndindi Nyoro can actually push from the mountain, even as it is. Not unless he has a backing of someone as prominent as Rigiji or His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta. I don't think on his own, as Ndindi Nyoro or Ichung'wah.
Kalonzo Musyoka, Eugene Wamalwa, Fred Matiang'i.
Yes.
And possibly Okiya Mtata's coalition with the Gachagua.
I think
need to take Ruto home. The Ruto must go.
You know, the Ruto must go narrative. And it's not because of Ruto as the president. It's because of the policies which are very unfriendly to the citizens. There are people pushing for Ruto to leave office. So if Ruto were to change, maybe things would change. That is one fact. But secondly, if they continue with this oppressive, especially tax measures that we are seeing, then the Kenyans will vote for any other person. Regardless of, even if it is you, Joe, who decides to run, they'll be like, we are better off with this person, that someone we have tested, we have seen how he thinks, we've seen how he pushes policies which are very unfriendly to us. One thing, we can even, and they're here and we were talking about it when we were walking in, Kenyans spoke loudly in July about the finance bill. What are we seeing the government doing today? Through the back door, they are pushing for the very same tax measures. In fact, more punitive than they were. before.
So Ruto is decampaigning himself.
He's actually
With his own
decampaigning himself.
policies.
And Kenyans may be just quiet, but watching and saying, you know what, you are doing this, we keep speaking to you, you are not listening to us because you're in position of power.
So Gachagua is probably now giving Kenyans an option of Ruto.
And if they come up as a better opposition now, then they stand a chance of winning with Ruto the way Ruto is.
Maliba, the 5 that I've stated, including Fred Matiang'i, former interior boss,
You know, first of all,
who are now forming a coalition with Gachagua come January 2025.
First of all, there is no truth in the allegation that there is a Gachagua camp.
What do you mean?
Because people are organizing themselves. Natembea in Western is busy with his Tawe movement.
In fact,
So-
Natembeya met Njeri Maina, who is the Kirinyaga woman rep, and they are possibly hinting that there are conversations ongoing
As in
around him joining
Politicians meet
Gachagwa's
every
camp.
day. Politicians meet every day. If you were to mention places in Kilimani, Hurlingham, Westlands, politicians literally meet every day. That alone is not enough. Also, why will Central Kenya send my
But
friend?
Natembeya is not in Ruto's camp.
Let's
He's
start,
in DAPK. Eugene
Yeah.
Amalwa and Kalonzo
Let's
Musyoka have
start-
been working closely.
let's start
And
from here.
maybe Natembeya is keen to actually,
Maybe
he's keen to actually
let's avoid conjecture.
make unpopular
Let's
Mudavadi and the Western region.
let's avoid conjecture. I do not think that the person of the deputy president, former deputy president, could send my friend Njeri Maina to actually be the negotiator in a matter that actually concerns
Maybe it was a
Natembeya.
meeting and they choose to take a photo.
Anyway, but then quickly, let me say this. This, you can actually put it on record, that President William Ruto's serious competitor cannot be within his age set or an older person. The only worry we have at UDA is that we do not know who our opponent in 2027 will be. There are people who have declared, but we know as of a fact that Rigiji is not a competitor to William Ruto. Even if Raila were to run, Raila is not a competitor to William Ruto in 2027.
They will defend
Neither
him
is
in Nyoro.
neither is Mtata. Until that actually happens, I will tell you, William Ruto's threat can only be a generational threat.
Babu Owino
It
has
has
been
not-
hinting of
It has not emerged yet.
being in the ballot come 2027.
Even for the
And
people
indeed in
who,
Nyoro.
yesterday the papers profiled people who probably are likely to take on William Ruto. And I'm just telling you that anybody within William Ruto's age set and older will not and cannot be a threat to William Ruto. What people are failing to see, and that is a political red ocean thinking, is that number one, we are at the cusp of a generational handover. The bulk of our voters, the registered 22.1 million voters, are actually millennials. If we saw a millennial who is respectable with a little bit of national appeal, then we will know that our opponent has arrived. Kalonzo is not, Omtata is not, Raila will not be, Rigathi cannot be. Maybe Ndindi Nyoro if he decided to. But then that speaks to what you actually had tried to allege. Number one, in 2022, Central Kenya, I'm talking about what we call the Central Kenya province, with the 5 constituencies, they had 3.1 million votes. There's normally this lie sold around that 50% of the votes in this country are actually from that region.
Very wrong.
It's very wrong because out of 22.1 million registered voters, if you were to work with the 3 million, what would that percent be? We have got 1.5 million on Mount Kenya East, that is Embu, Tarakaniti, Meru, and probably the diaspora on the other end. So the lie that Mount Kenya actually would bring in is 50% of the voters is actually a very big lie.
In this case, Maliba,
Yeah.
I think what Gachagua is trying to form here is having a party that has a national face. With having Babu Owino, let's say, in his camp,
Babu Owino cannot be in
Nyanza is
Rigiji's.
in the picture.
Now,
With having the likes of
let's
Fred
start here.
Matiang'i, Kisii region,
Let's start
would be
here.
back.
Let's start here. Anything national cannot be sold by the second deputy president because even now he's unapologetically pro-Mulima. At a time when we are talking
Maybe
about
that's what you
national
think,
face,
but with
not what we
what,
think. He has stated
with
even
what
yesterday.
Honorable Gakuya has stated
Even yesterday
on who-
on a show. Here we are not talking about what we think. We are talking about what he has done and
Well,
what he
his
has
close
said.
ally has stated that Fred Matiang'i, who comes from Kisii, maybe will bring votes. Babu Owino from the Luo Nyanza.
That alliance is
aspect.
dead. That alliance is dead on
We have
arrival.
the likes of
You
Okiya
cannot
Omtata from the
just-
Western region and Natembeya. Kalonzo Musyoka
I'm
from
looking
the
at
eastern region.
Look at this. I'm looking at Babu Wino's ideological leaning and Rigiji's ideological thinking. You can't put the two together. Omtata, okay, Omtata.
But he'll only be a kingmaker. In this case, Ndindi Nyoro and Babu Wino could be fronted.
At what cost? You see, Rigiji is not for the
just
Christmas.
To take Ruto home.
Rigiji is not a political for the Christmas, that he will just be there to actually come in as... Knowing Rigiji is a hard-nosed deal maker. He will not be a kingmaker for free. That's why I'm actually telling you, Omtata will not come in. Even Natembeya, I will really struggle to see the ideological concurrence between Natembeya and Rigiji. It will be so difficult for us for the two of them to marry. Also,
I think Natembeya, for his case, he made it very clear that him is vying 2032 after he's done with the governor.
That's what I see. So that was, and by the way, there is no movement called Tawe in Western. It doesn't exist. That is just a rallying call in Trans Nzoia. No, it's not.
Beginning to end up. Honorable Gakuya, even as you give your parting shot on the issues that are now, of course, facing the country, the issue of SHA, according to Gachagua, from a system of 700 million that would have been procured at the NHIF to a whooping 104 billion Kenya shillings. He said 104 billion is not 104 shillings. So, of course, he's castigating the government of the day. On the Adani deals that he warned, terming it as a scam, then he was not listened to. But maybe with the US inducting Adani, Ruto is seen as a political or as a US puppet, and at the same time the looming doctor strike as well.
Let me not go to that direction of calling the head of state somebody who sings the tune of American directives. But
who did he listen to? Was it Kenyans or the US?
Let us agree that, in fact, there could be that kind of indictment, but still the head of state ignore and still proceed with the Adani deals. But what I can say is that at this point in time, Kenyans has done and has raised, they did raise their voice to a tune where one could hear that, in fact, the route is not welcome at all. And for the head of state listening, I would say he listened to the voice of the Kenyans. And taking that direction, to me, that is, to me, a new birth to Kenyans. Because if, in any case, those deals could have proceeded with the goodwill of the head of state and the government, it could still persist. But for the government taking a position that let us terminate all of them and forget it, it is let us quit the clamor of the people and do what the public want. And I think it is not, I am not against any PPP, but let us do PPP. The problem of this of this particular deal is that it was cited as single source because Adani had no competitor at all. That is what Treasury said.
Well, thank
that
you.
There was no single competitor, and if there was no single competitor, then it was not fair at all.
Well,
that direction of single source, and I would say, going forward, let us be having a broader way of interested parties. Then, out of that choice, you can pick the best.
Thank you. In 30 seconds or less, Rachel, your final remarks.
Thank you. I just want to say that the government needs to heed more to the call by the citizens on the issues of good governance. We see a lot of times Kenyans coming out and calling on the government to be more responsive, to be more accountable, to be more transparent, and all their calls just go unnoticed or unresponded to until something else takes course, like in the Adani deal, where it took the Americans to call on the Adani himself, is when the president comes out and say, actually, this is not a good cause. But in all fairness, were our issues with Adani as an individual or the manner in which the procurement system was done for the upgrade of the airport or the management of the airport? And the president went ahead and said, we are still going to look for other possible partners. But if you are calling for other possible partners and taking the same route as you did for Adani, then as Kenyans, we'll still call out on you as a government that this is unfairness, is not good governance at all. So I think our Mheshimiwa here and the team in Parliament should take their oversight role so keenly. So that they ensure that all the processes, if Kenyans call out on a process, then they ensure that all the tight and loose ends are actually checked.
Thank you. Maliba, your parting shot.
My parting shot would be that looking at how we actually have discussed this morning, you will realize that we've spoken about individual politicians, we've spoken about the executive. Sometimes we even touch on the judiciary. But somehow, there's not been so much focus on the institution of parliament. And I do this every time I meet Waheshimiwas on platforms, is actually to tell Mheshimiwa that the weakest link in our governance is parliament.
But they said Ruto was captured parliament.
Let me just execute my point. Our weakest link, our governance link that is actually weakest is parliament. When Kenyans were fighting to do away with the imperial presidency, they domiciled a lot of power in parliament, knowing that so many of you cannot conspire against the republic and you cannot conspire against the people. What we see a lot of times that when it's about your interests as Waheshimiwa, there is never executive capture, there is never opposition and government.
Thank you.
Just a good example, like when the president said that you stop traveling, you stop, you manage. Even Otienda Molo said that parliament is independent. All of you spoke in one voice. But when it comes to issues of Mwananchi, we start to hear you guys giving us Majitu stories about there's executive capture, there's this party and the other one. Why is it that you are united and independent when it is about you as your individual interests, but when it's about the people? So please, from wherever we are, all the challenges we've spoken about today, there's little legislation that helps the situation that we are talking about today. There's little oversight working around that, and there is literally zero representation.
Well, thank you so much.
Acheni kukua CDF managers, kuweni members of parliament.
Thank you so much, Arnold Maliba, head of Policy and Public Affairs at the ruling party UDA, Rachel Omola, governance expert, and as well Honorable James Gakuya, with the Embakasi North Member of Parliament. It has been a conversation on the state of the nation. My name is Joel Chasha. This is New Dawn. Enjoy the rest of your viewing. Good day.